Hello everyone, Professor Squatch here with the first video in my new series covering my favorite Pokemon of all time. So far. Of course, you can't be a quintessential Poketuber without sharing a video or series about your personal favorites, right? Since of course there are nearly 1,000 Pokemon and the list keeps growing, I've decided to break out my top lists into each generation to start. This video will of course start at the beginning of it all, Generation 1. Before we begin, a few notes. The order isn't particular for most of my list, but you'll probably be able to tell which ones I prefer over the others. I'll give some brief details and reasoning as to why the Pokemon mentioned are my favorites within the generation. Some of my list will actually comprise of the whole evolutionary line for a Pokemon, or it'll only be one Pokemon in that evolutionary line, depending on how I feel about them. I'll go through some honorable mentions as well, just so you know that I have more than just 10 favorites. I'm also leaving out any evolutions or regional variants introduced in later games and generations. I want to cover my thoughts on the Pokemon that released at the time the generation did. Lastly, these are my opinions. Please don't tell me why I'm wrong. Actually, tell me which Pokemon are your favorites in the comments below because I am actually curious. With the notes out of the way, let's get started. Generation 1 Pokemon, the original, OG, 151 Pokemon, the Pokemon that everyone knows and loves, or hates that they're shown so much love, are some of the most recognizable fictional creations in the world. We've all had a chance to fall in love with the Pocket Monsters through the release of Pokemon Red, Blue, and eventually Yellow on the Game Boy, and the unforgettable Pokemon Card, Base, Fossil, Jungle, Gym, and Team Rocket sets, and of course the adventures of Ash, Brock, and Misty on the Pokemon anime show. These original 151 Pokemon have been around for over 25 years and are still favored by many as the best ones created. They are favored so much that even the latest games, Generation 8 Sword and Shield's most recent update, the Isle of Armor DLC, included the reintroduction of 33 Generation 1 Pokemon. This accounted for the largest portion of the 100 returning Pokemon, 33% of it in fact. Of course, you could argue that's because the 3D models compatible with the Switch were already created for Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but if you follow the Pokemon Twitter, you'll see 9 times out of 10 the content that they tweet about is Gen 1 Pokemon. Generation 1 Pokemon have been showcased in 7 different games in the main series across 3 generations and 3 different consoles. So yeah, this is by far the most popular set of Pokemon ever introduced. I did start playing Pokemon when I was a kid by playing Pokemon Red first. This is of course where I fell in love with the franchise, started collecting cards that are long since gone, and I really started to develop favorites. Strangely enough, some of my favorites were Pokemon I never used in Pokemon Red. I became connected to them through the cards or the TV show that I'd watch before school every day growing up. So, let's get into my list of top 10 favorite Pokemon of Generation 1. First up is Arcanine. Arcanine looks like a big dog and is a fire type, which I'm attracted to. I never used it in games really, beyond evolving a Growlithe to fill up my Pokedex, but I cherished my Arcanine card and its appearance in the show. Its powerful and fast design is really cool. The color scheme and stoic appearance really make it stand out to me. These days, I'm less in favor of it, but at one point, I loved it so much, I bought a t-shirt with Arcanine on it from GameStop. It doesn't fit anymore, if you're wondering. Second on the list is the evolutionary line of Krabby and Kingler. Are these Pokemon simple crabs? Yes. Are they original anyway? Not really, but I always thought that they looked so cool, especially on their cards. I never really used them in the games, but for some reason I always enjoyed encountering them. Again though, it was really their cards that stand out in memory for me. Third up is Golem. Yeah, Geodude is cool and Graveler's meh, but Golem is the epitome of awesome in the evolutionary line. Its original card was one that I really remembered always wanting to keep in my collection. Spoiler alert, I don't have it anymore. And I most recently used one in my Soul Silver playthrough where it was pretty strong. What you'll find throughout these videos is that I'm a bit impartial to rock-type Pokemon. Something about their movesets and design draw me to them most, it seems, and there's no exception with Golem. Fourth up is a Pokemon I used in almost every playthrough if I could, Pidgeot. Pidgey and Pidgeotto aren't as cool to me, so they aren't on this list, but Pidgeot is by far my favorite bird Pokemon probably ever. Its design showcases that full maturation of Pidgey in the most sensible way. It was a pretty powerful Pokemon to use in playthroughs, and honestly, after watching Ash do it, I always wanted to ride on one like he does in the show. The Pidgeot holographic card was one that I had for many years and really loved as well. This Pokemon just sticks out to me, and I honestly have to tell myself to not use it when I play through a Pokemon game now because I used it so much growing up. Fifth on the list is the evolutionary line that probably exists on most people's all-time favorite lists. Yes, Charizard, of course, is next. Now, I actually put Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard together here for good reason. While I do find the other starter Pokemon really great in Generation 1, nothing has left an impact on me like the Charizard line. My first ever Pokemon starter was a Charmander, and I beat the game using Charizard almost exclusively. Its design is by far one of the best ever. I love the plot line throughout the Pokemon show, especially where Ash's Charmander gradually turned into a rebellious Charmeleon and then Charizard, but in the end did what it took to save Ash when he needed him the most. The cards are also extremely memorable to me. Having the base set Charmander and Charmeleon made me happy, but the only original Charizard card I have left is a base set 2 Charizard 2 in not so great condition. I'm probably never going to get rid of the card. It's just too good. I had a Charizard plushie as a kid, and I only ever wanted one on my team no matter what game I played. I will say now that my favor for it has subsided a little bit due to the sheer overuse of the Pokemon now. Charizard is everywhere. The most sought after cards in most Pokemon card sets, what are they? Charizard. Who gets a new form when new forms are introduced? You guessed it, Charizard. Who gets more love than everyone else besides Pikachu? Probably Charizard. Honestly, it makes sense because it's so well designed and it's just very marketable. But man, it can be a bit much these days. I still love you though, you fiery dragon beast you. Sixth on my list is Sandshrew and Sandslash. I love these two Pokemon a lot. Sandslash of course edges out Sandshrew, but I had to include it. Sandslash's ground typing, claws and spikes are what draw me to it. I had the original cards as a kid and their artwork made them stand out to me. I just could never get enough of it, and I even used them in playthroughs a time or two. Seventh on my list is Kabutops. Kabuto is kind of boring, but Kabutops is pretty awesome. Yeah, it's basically a rock water scyther, but this one stands out to me. The Kabutops card is one of my all-time favorites, and I always chose the Dome Fossil over the Helix Fossil. Sorry, Lord Helix. When I played through Red or Blue, it's just an awesome design, but I love it. So yeah. Eighth on my list is the water type Cloister. Ah, Cloister. One of my favorite cards and by far my favorite water Pokemon, perhaps ever. It's not really a strong Pokemon in terms of attack, but I love the spiky shell design and the sinister face that it has. Really, it looks pretty evil. I really wish it was more popular because Cloister deserves a lot more recognition than it gets. Ninth on my list is Rhyhorn and Rhydon. These two are amongst my all-time favorites for sure. Again, I'm a sucker for rock-type Pokemon, but I really couldn't get over these Pokemon, and I almost always had one on my team. They're powerful and intimidating. While the evolution line doesn't make the most sense, I like Rhyhorn and Rhydon for their unique characteristics. I do love Rhydon's spinning horn for a nose. Their cards also stick out in my memories from childhood, and I even still have a holographic Brock's Rhydon card, which is probably my favorite Rhydon card ever. I just love these rock monsters. Before I cover my favorite Pokemon of Generation 1, I wanted to point out a few honorable mentions. Poliwrath is a strong water type that also happens to be fighting type 2. Loved the card and used it on a few playthrough teams. Scyther is my favorite bug type Pokemon and was always a memorable card in my collection. Aerodactyl is a flying rock type, so yeah, he's pretty awesome too. Snorlax is a big tank of a Pokemon and remains a favorite of mine to this day. I've used it more times than I can count in the games, so it's just left an impact on me. And lastly, Dragonite was always a fun one to use in the games, and I liked its design even if its pre-evolutions don't make much sense. Now, let's talk about my favorite Generation 1 Pokemon, and perhaps one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, Nidoking. Nidoran and Nidorino are pretty cool in their own respects too, so really their evolutionary line is among my favorites. I always tried to use Nidoking in my Gen 1 playthroughs because it's just so powerful. The design looks really great as it gives off a powerful vibe and it looks like it could crush anything. I still have my original Nidoking holographic card from when I was a kid and I will probably never get rid of it, even if it's worth like $100,000. Never. It's one of the few Pokemon that I'd give up anything just to use in a game because I can't help myself. Nidoking isn't as prominent as Charizard or some other powerful Pokemon, but in my eyes, I'd pick Nidoking any day over it because it's just so cool to me. Well, that wraps it up for me. I hope you enjoyed learning about my favorite Generation 1 Pokemon. Be sure to comment your favorites on the video so we can get into a great discussion about it. Also, like and subscribe for more Pokemon content. Until next time, trainers, this is Professor Squatch.